left out of my sister's engagement party, so I flew to paradise instead. I never thought the sound of silence could cut deeper than words. But silence is exactly what I got 5 birthdays in a row. No card, no call, not even a lazy happy birthday text from the people who were supposed to love me unconditionally. My name is Amanda. I'm 31 now, living in Chicago, building a life that I once believed my parents, Robert and Susan Mitchell, would be proud of. They weren't wealthy like the families you see in glossy magazines, but they were comfortable. Dad owned 3 auto shops in our Ohio town of Westerville. Mom ran a dental practice. We were middle-class stable, the kind of family people assumed was normal. But normal in our house meant one thing: Madison, my younger sister, was the golden child. She sparkled even when she didn't try. Prettier, more outgoing, always at the center of the room, while I hid with a book. I told myself those were just childhood dynamics, that when we grew up, things would even out. They didn't. It started on my 27th birthday, March 15, 2018. I had been in Chicago 4 years working as a software developer in healthcare. I wasn't expecting a surprise party or a bouquet delivered to my office, but I figured my parents would at least remember their eldest child existed. The day came and went. Nothing. 2 days later, when I called, Mom gasped, "Oh, honey, I'm so sorry. Work has been insane, and your father had that mess at the Maple Street shop. We'll make it up to you." She never did. I brushed it off as an oversight. People forget dates, right? But the same thing happened in 2019 and 2020. That year, I saw Madison's Instagram. Our parents had taken her to Nashville for her 25th. Broadway shows, fancy dinners, champagne. For me, radio silence. When I confronted Mom, her voice tightened. "Sweetie, you're doing so well in Chicago. You don't need us fussing over you." Madison, she just went through that breakup. She needed cheering up. There it was, laid bare. Madison needed. I was fine. And in our family, being fine meant being invisible. By 2021 and 2022, I'd stopped pretending it was a mistake. Madison's birthdays were parade surprise parties with 50 guests, private dining rooms, expensive jewelry. Mine passed like ordinary Tuesdays. I'd sit alone in my condo, sushi on the coffee table, Netflix humming in the background, and try not to care. But I did. It burned. The hardest part wasn't the absence of gifts or parties, it was the message. Every missed birthday whispered the same thing: you don't matter. Still, I swallowed it year after year. Told myself I was too old to care, that validation didn't matter. But deep down, I wanted what Madison got without even asking proof that I was seen. Then came March 15th, 2023, my 31st birthday. I planned nothing extravagant, just sushi, wine, and a quiet night in. I wasn't even disappointed when my phone stayed silent. I expected nothing. But the next day, a single screenshot shattered me. My friend Jennifer sent it from Madison's Instagram story, a photo of our parents handing her the keys to a brand new Audi Q7. The caption read, "Early birthday gift from the best parents ever. They wanted me safe on the roads. I'm so blessed. #grateful, new car." My hands shook. My chest went cold. The Audi cost over $60,000. These were the same people who couldn't remember to send me a $5 birthday card. It wasn't about the car. It was about the truth it revealed. In their world, Madison was everything. I was a shadow. That night, staring at that photo, I made a choice. Not a dramatic confrontation. Not angry texts or slammed doors. No, something quieter, sharper. I began erasing them from my life. One by one, I blocked Mom, Dad, Madison. Then cousins, aunts, anyone who could serve as their mouthpiece. No announcements, no explanation, just silence. For years, they'd forgotten I existed. Now I was going to return the favor, except this time, it would hurt, and it did. More than I ever expected. The first few days after I cut them off felt weightless. I'd blocked their numbers, unfriended them on every platform, and shut the door without saying a word. It was like slipping out of a noisy room into a quiet forest. For the first time in years, my chest loosened. But peace never lasts when your absence becomes someone else's obsession. 2 weeks, and my coworker, Beth, leaned over my desk at lunch. "Hey, Amanda, some woman called the office asking for you. Said it was urgent family emergency." Then she hung up before leaving a number. The name Susan Mitchell hit me like a stone in the gut. My mother had tracked down my work line, my sanctuary. The calls didn't stop. Dad tried next, his voice booming through the receptionist's phone. Then Madison crying so loud, Beth swore she heard it across the cubicles. Every day they rang, demanding to know why I'd gone silent. I told HR to flag all family calls as non-work related. Chicago wasn't Westerville. Here, professionalism meant boundaries they couldn't bulldoze. When they realized the office was a dead end, they got creative. Jennifer, my closest friend in Chicago, showed me a string of messages from Madison. "We haven't heard from Amanda in weeks. We're so scared. Do you know if she's okay?" Her words dripped with false innocence, but the tone was calculated, designed to guilt-trip my friends into acting as spies. Jennifer didn't buy it. She texted back, "She's fine. If she's not calling you, maybe she has a reason." That tiny defense of me was enough to make Madison spiral into a sob story about Mom not eating, Dad drinking more than usual, and the family falling apart. I nearly laughed. My dad barely drinks. But the performance was Oscar-level tragic, self-pitying, carefully edited to paint them as heartbroken saints. The masterpiece came later when Madison sent Jennifer a voice memo. 20 minutes of rambling about how the family just wants me home and how they're already planning something special for my next birthday. 5 years of forgetting me, and suddenly they were planning ahead. The hypocrisy was almost artistic. Still, they weren't done. My landlord knocked one evening, looking uneasy. Amanda. I've been getting strange calls asking if I've seen you. Said it's urgent family business. Everything okay? I felt my stomach twist. My parents had found the building's number. They were interrogating staff about my comings and goings as if I were a missing person instead of their neglected daughter drawing a line. The invasiveness grew darker. At my next doctor's appointment, the receptionist whispered, "We had calls from people claiming to be your parents, asking about your health records. Don't worry, we didn't tell them anything." But it was persistent. HIPAA protected me, but the fact they tried it all, that cut deep. They weren't just worried. They were trespassing into parts of my life they had no right to enter. And as if that weren't enough, Madison went full theater in public. She started telling anyone who'd listen that I was unstable, jealous, maybe even paranoid. "Amanda thinks mom and dad love me more," she told one mutual friend. "She's convinced herself into a breakdown." We offered therapy, but she refused. That was a lie so bold it almost stole my breath. They'd never offered therapy. In fact, when I once told mom I'd started seeing a therapist, her response was, "What for you seemed fine to me." Now they were twisting it into proof of my instability. Classic gaslighting. My pain recast as delusion, their neglect reframed as loving concern. Inside I seethed, but outside I stayed silent. I didn't correct their stories. I didn't storm their doors demanding recognition. Silence was my weapon now, and watching them trip over their own lies was oddly satisfying. Because the harder they worked to chase me, the clearer the truth became. For the first time, they were feeling what I had felt every March 15th. For half a decade, erased, powerless, desperate for acknowledgement. And I wasn't about to hand that power back. By month 3, the silence I wrapped myself in had turned into their storm. They couldn't stand not having control, so they built their own story. A story where I wasn't a daughter setting boundaries, but a broken woman who needed saving. Jennifer became my reluctant news anchor. One night, over drinks, she slid her phone across the table. "You need to see this." It was a Facebook post from Madison. A throwback photo of us on Christmas morning years ago, her arms around me, grinning. The caption, "Family is everything." Some people forget that, but I'll never stop loving my sister, praying she finds her way back to us. To family first. Hashtag miss you, Amanda. I stared at it stunned. In that moment, I felt like a ghost haunting my own life. She'd rewritten history with a hashtag. Anyone scrolling by would think we'd been inseparable best friends, not polite siblings who barely shared more than small talk. But it wasn't just social media. Madison's coffee shop run-in with Jennifer was worse. She told me, "You've been jealous of her for years," Jennifer said gently, eyes apologetic. "That you were paranoid. Said you accused your parents of loving her more?" I laughed bitterly. Accused? That wasn't an accusation, it was reality. Jennifer nodded. "I know, but Amanda, she really believes it. Like she's rewritten the whole script in her head." That was the first time I realized. Gaslighting doesn't just confuse the victim, it converts the audience. Madison wasn't lying to hurt me. She was lying to heal the family's reputation. And people were buying it. Soon, more reports trickled in. My college roommate, Emma, messaged me. "Your mom reached out, asked if you were in some abusive relationship. Said you'd cut everyone off because someone was isolating you." My jaw clenched. They couldn't admit they'd failed me, so they invented a villain. Better to blame a faceless abuser than face their own neglect. Even my coworker, Derek, got dragged in. One day, he spun his laptop toward me, eyebrows raised. Your dad messaged me on LinkedIn. Asked if you're performing okay at work. Said they were worried about your mental state." Heat shot to my face. My career was the one space untouched by their favoritism. Now they were smearing cracks into that too. I forced a smile for Derek. Ignore it. Family drama. But inside, I felt gutted. Interfering with my professional reputation wasn't just invasive, it was sabotage. And yet, I refused to break silence. That's when the letters started. Handwritten notes slid under my apartment door, care packages with childhood snacks and books I used to love. Each one carried the same hollow refrain. "If we hurt you, we're sorry. If you felt forgotten, it wasn't intentional. Please come home." If, always if. As if my pain were hypothetical, a misunderstanding instead of 5 birthdays erased. One package had a teddy bear I'd slept with as a kid. I stared at its stitched smile, torn between rage and grief. Where was this attention when I was 17 and crying quietly in my room? Where was it when I called from an ER after my car accident? Suddenly now, when they'd lost control, they remembered my favorite toy. Dad's approach was colder, a typed letter businesslike. "We may have unintentionally favored Madison. Let's meet with a counselor to work this out." The words stung more than comforted. May have favored dropping $60,000 on an Audi for her the day after forgetting my birthday wasn't unintentional. It was proof of their hierarchy. The more they tried to paper over the cracks, the more their narrative mutated. Madison told extended family I was unstable, maybe depressed. My parents whispered to neighbors that I'd been brainwashed by city life. Every version painted them as the victims of my cruelty, never the architects of it. Meanwhile, I was thriving, working out, laughing with friends, even starting to date again. Their unstable daughter was living the most stable life she'd ever had. But here's the twist, their gaslighting almost worked. Not on me, but on people around me. One distant cousin DM'd me. "Why are you doing this to your poor mom? She's worried sick. At least call her." I read it 3 times, heart thumping. For a split second, I questioned myself. Was I cruel? Had I overreacted? Then I remembered Madison's Nashville trip, the Audi keys, the years of empty birthdays. I remembered sitting alone with sushi and silence while my sister was showered with diamonds and champagne. No, I wasn't cruel. I was free. The irony is rich. For years, I begged for acknowledgement. Now in my silence, I was the center of their universe. My absence was louder than my presence ever was. That realization became my anchor. Every time doubt whispered, I told myself they're spinning stories because the truth is too heavy for them to lift. Let them choke on their own fiction. And still I said nothing, not a word. By month 6, their panic had metastasized into strategy. No longer satisfied with letters and guilt-drenched packages, they started plotting interventions as if my silence were an illness to be cured, not a choice to be respected. Jennifer told me first, her voice low, like she was confessing a crime. Madison gave me her number, said I should call her immediately if you seemed depressed. She actually said they were ready to stage an intervention if necessary. I laughed sharp and bitter. An intervention? For what? Choosing peace. Jennifer shrugged. I don't think they see it that way. She made it sound like they'd gather everyone, your parents, maybe even extended family, and confront you. You know, like those reality TV shows. The image hit me, sitting in a circle. Every eye on me, their voices overlapping. We love you. We're worried. Why are you doing this to us? A scripted performance where I was cast as the unstable daughter. My chest tightened. It wasn't just illusion. It was theater, and they were rehearsing lines for an audience. But they weren't content with private fantasies. They went public. One March morning, Jennifer slid her phone across the cafe table, her nails tapping nervously. You need to see this. It was a Facebook event, Amanda's 32nd birthday celebration. Wherever you are, we love you. 60 people had been invited. Extended relatives, old high school classmates I barely remembered, even co-workers of my parents. The description read, even though our beloved Amanda can't be with us this year, we're going to celebrate her anyway. We'll gather to share memories, look at photos, and send love to someone very special who we miss every day. Amanda. If you see this, please know you're always welcome home. They tagged me. Of course, I'd blocked them, but screenshots found their way to me through friends. I stared at the event page, my stomach churning. My family hadn't remembered my birthday for 5 years straight. Now, suddenly, they were hosting a party for me without me. It wasn't a celebration. It was a campaign, a glossy PR stunt to paint themselves as victims abandoned by a cruel daughter. Emma, my college roommate, called me that evening, voice tight with disbelief. They invited me, Amanda. They barely knew me in college, and now suddenly, they're acting like I'm part of some inner circle. What did you do? I asked. I declined, politely. But, God, it's manipulative. They're trying to create a narrative where you're the villain. That was when the fear shifted to fury. For years, I'd been invisible, a footnote in my own family. Now, in my absence, I was the centerpiece of their tragedy play. And then came the packages, ratcheted up a notch. Not just snacks and teddy bears now. There was a scrapbook. Photos of me as a child pasted beside captions written in my mother's looping handwriting. Our sweet Amanda, always so independent. We love you more than words can say. Independence. There it was, again their favorite weapon. Code for neglect. Code for, we didn't have to care, because you survived without us. The scrapbook made my hands shake. Each picture was a memory I had lived in loneliness Christmas mornings, where Madison drowned in gifts while I smiled faintly for the camera. Graduation, where she was surrounded by cheering relatives while I got a handshake and Olive Garden. And now those photos were being repurposed as propaganda proof of a closeness that never existed. I snapped the book shut. They're not saving memories, I muttered to myself. They're rewriting them. Meanwhile, Madison's social media spiraled into desperation. She posted moody selfies with captions like, family isn't the same when someone's missing. Some chairs feel empty tonight. She even tagged me in one, though she knew I'd blocked her. Screenshots arrived anyway, courtesy of Jennifer. The comments beneath made me sick. Strangers gushed sympathy. Stay strong, girl. She'll come back. Praying for your sister's healing. No one asked why I'd left. No one considered that maybe, just maybe, there was a reason. At night, lying in bed, I replayed the intervention scenario in my head. What if they actually showed up, tried to corner me with crocodile tears, and staged concern? I started altering my routines, different routes home, switching gyms, avoiding predictable patterns. Paranoid maybe, but after seeing how far they'd gone, I wasn't about to underestimate them. The scariest part wasn't the event or the scrapbook. It was the way they told the story to themselves. In their minds, they were heroes battling to save a wayward daughter from her demons. I wasn't estranged. I was sick. I wasn't choosing freedom. I was lost. That delusion was bulletproof, impervious to facts. And what do you do when the people who claim to love you refuse to see you clearly? When their version of you is more important than the real you? That was the question I carried like a stone in my chest. It started with photos. One quiet Sunday, I was sorting through my laptop, organizing old files, when I stumbled on a folder I hadn't opened in years, family pictures. At first, it was harmless nostalgia. Christmas trees, birthdays, random summer cookouts. But the longer I clicked, the more it felt like staring into a museum of evidence I hadn't known I was collecting. In photo after photo, Madison was always center stage. She sparkled laughing in a halo of relatives, while I stood at the edge, smiling politely. Sometimes I was cropped halfway out as if I hadn't mattered enough to frame correctly. There was one image that hit harder than the rest, Madison's high school graduation. Our parents had rented out a private room at a country club. Balloons, catered food, a professional photographer. Dozens of people packed the tables cheering her on. In the background, I caught a glimpse of myself, 17, awkward, clutching a paper plate of food. No spotlight, no speeches, no professional photos. When I'd graduated 3 years earlier, we'd gone to Olive Garden. Just the 5 of us. No decorations, no relatives, no fuss. I told myself back then it was because Madison was more social. But seeing the photos side by side, I realized the truth: I had been invisible long before I ever disappeared. And they'd used that invisibility to their advantage. When I went no contact, my parents didn't admit to forgetting 5 birthdays. They didn't acknowledge the luxury car they gifted Madison the very day after mine passed unnoticed. Instead, they rewrote the script. To them, I wasn't estranged because of neglect. I was jealous. I wasn't hurt. I was unstable. Jennifer told me about a conversation she had with Madison in a coffee shop. She said, "You've always been resentful," Jennifer admitted, stirring her latte nervously. "That you felt like they loved her more. She painted it like you lost touch with reality." I felt my stomach drop. "So now I'm the jealous, paranoid sister," Jennifer nodded, reluctant. "She even said they offered to pay for therapy, but you refused. Claimed you didn't think anything was wrong with you." That part made me laugh, sharp and humorless. Therapy. The one time I'd mentioned seeing a therapist in Chicago, Mom had said, "What for? You seem fine." They'd never offered to help me pay. They'd never cared enough to. The gaslighting was breathtaking, and it wasn't just stories they told outsiders. It seeped into their daily conversations. Aunt Carol, the family gossip, started spreading rumors that I'd fallen in with a bad crowd in Chicago. To others, she suggested I might be in an abusive relationship with someone isolating me from family. Each theory absolved them of blame. None acknowledged the simplest truth: they had made me feel like I didn't matter. I began documenting not just my memories, but their manipulations. Screenshots of Facebook posts, saved voicemails, photos of the scrapbook they sent me. Not because I planned to expose them publicly, but because I needed proof for myself. Receipts that I wasn't crazy. One night, I sat on my bed flipping through that scrapbook. Under a picture of me at 8 years old, Mom had written, "Amanda, always so strong and independent. We knew we didn't have to worry about you." Independent. The word echoed like a curse. It had been their excuse for years, their alibi for neglect. Independence meant they didn't have to show up when I called from the ER after a car accident. Independence meant they didn't have to celebrate my wins because I'd be fine either way. Independence was code for we cared more about the one who needed us to. But independence isn't love. Independence is survival. The more I thought about it, the more the rewritten history made sense. It wasn't about convincing me I was gone. It was about convincing themselves. If I was unstable, jealous, paranoid, then they didn't have to face the truth that they'd neglected one daughter while drowning the other in attention. That truth would shatter the image they'd built for decades. The perfect family, the devoted parents, the golden child. So instead, they painted me as defective. Easier to blame the daughter who walked away than admit they'd driven her to the door. And yet, part of me still ached. Still asked the dangerous question: if they rewrote history enough times, would they eventually believe it? Would my absence fade into their story as nothing more than proof that I was unstable? Would the truth die in silence? That thought kept me awake at night. Because what's worse than being invisible, being remembered as a lie? By the 6th month, the obsession had grown claws. It wasn't enough that I had blocked their numbers, ignored their letters, and shut every door I could. My family started reaching through the cracks in my life, trying to grab hold of me wherever they could. And the scariest part was how far they were willing to go. It began with work. Beth, my coworker and friend, pulled me aside one afternoon with this nervous look. "Hey, Amanda, your mom called the office." I froze. "What?" She said it was an emergency. Asked if you were okay. But when I tried to take a message, she hung up. Beth lowered her voice. She sounded frantic. My stomach twisted. Work was my safe zone, the one place I could breathe without family shadows. The fact that my mother had breached that boundary made me feel exposed, like she'd cracked open my last locked door. Over the next week, the calls escalated. First Mom, then Dad, then Madison. They rang the office multiple times a day. Beth joked that I had fans, but I saw the way her smile tightened, the unease behind it. I told her and the receptionist to block the numbers to tell anyone asking for me that I wasn't available for personal calls. Policy gave me cover, but inside, I was shaken. Then, my landlord knocked on my door one evening, hat in hand. "Everything okay, Amanda? I've been getting some unusual calls. People asking if you've been seen around the building." I felt my face burn. "Who called?" "A woman. Said she was your mother. Seemed worried." That was when it hit me. My parents weren't just trying to contact me. They were recruiting strangers into their panic, dragging innocent people into our family dysfunction. And it didn't stop there. Tony, the doorman at my building, mentioned it casually one night. "Your mom called the main office. Asked if I'd seen you lately. Said she was worried sick." The way he said it, half sympathetic, half amused, made my chest tighten. I pictured my mother's voice trembling, telling whoever picked up the phone that her daughter was missing, that she might be in danger. It was manipulative brilliance. Who could deny a mother asking if her child was alive? Even my doctor's office wasn't safe. During a routine physical, the receptionist asked, "Everything okay with your family? We got some strange calls from people saying they were your parents asking about your health." I laughed on reflex, but it was hollow. They had tried to pry into my medical records. My health, my body, privacy laws stopped them. but the attempt itself was enough to make my skin crawl. It became clear they weren't searching for me anymore. They were building a case, a story where I was unstable, maybe sick, maybe in trouble. They wanted witnesses, my boss, my landlord, my doctor, even my neighbors to confirm their version of events. And in doing so, they infected every corner of my life with their chaos. Friends weren't immune either. Madison started messaging them, Jennifer, Emma, even Derek from work, painting herself as the devastated sister. "We're so close," she wrote. "I don't know what I did wrong." Amanda was my best friend. Jennifer showed me one of the messages, rolling her eyes. "She acts like you two were joined at the hip. But when have you ever been best friends?" "Never," I said flatly. Madison and I had always been cordial distant, like two planets sharing an orbit but never touching. Yet now, in her rewritten narrative, I was her soulmate sister ripped away without explanation. And people believed her, or at least they pitied her. She posted throwback pictures of us with captions like, "Family is everything. Missing you always." Friends who didn't know the truth commented things like, "She'll come around. Stay strong." The manipulation made me sick. It wasn't enough that they forgot me when I was present. They wanted to reinvent me now that I was gone. The worst part came 8 months in when Jennifer ran into Madison at a cafe. Madison cried in front of her, saying she couldn't sleep, couldn't eat that. Losing me was like losing a limb. She even asked Jennifer to keep an eye on me and report back if I seemed depressed. "Like she wanted me to spy on you," Jennifer said afterward, disgusted. That's when the fear set in. What if they tried an intervention? What if they showed up in Chicago, dragged me into a therapist's office, claiming I was delusional? I imagined them pounding on my door, armed with half-truths and crocodile tears, insisting they were only trying to help. It made me paranoid. I started altering my routines, leaving work at different times, changing routes home. I locked down my social media even tighter. I stopped telling people which cafes I went to, which gym classes I took. It felt like living under surveillance. But what broke me most wasn't their invasion. It was the silence underneath it. Not once in any message, any phone call, any desperate stunt did they say the words that mattered. "We're sorry we forgot you. We're sorry we treated you less. We're sorry we broke you." Instead, their obsession turned into theater, with me as the villain, and themselves as the grieving victims. And the more I watched from the sidelines, the more I realized they weren't chasing me. They were chasing the idea of me, the version that fit their story, the Amanda, who was independent, resilient, too strong to need anything. The real me, the one who ached, who cried quietly on forgotten birthdays, who carried years of neglect, like an invisible weight, had never mattered. Maybe that's why they were panicking now. For the first time, they couldn't find me. Because I had finally stopped being invisible on their terms. I had made myself invisible on my own. March 15th came again, my 32nd birthday. For once, I wasn't dreading it. I had already accepted the truth. My family would never celebrate me the way they celebrated Madison. But this time, it didn't hurt. I had plans with friends, a quiet dinner lined up, and the comfort of knowing no one could disappoint me because I expected nothing. But my family had other plans. A week before my birthday, Jennifer sent me a screenshot that almost made me laugh out loud. Madison had created a Facebook event titled Amanda's 32nd birthday celebration. "Wherever you are, we love you." The description read like a script for a Hallmark movie. "Even though our beloved Amanda can't be with us this year, we're going to celebrate her anyway. We'll gather to share memories, look at photos, and send love to the sister and daughter we miss every single day." 60 people invited. Extended family, old neighbors, even a handful of my high school classmates. People I hadn't spoken to in years were suddenly part of this spectacle. At first, I thought it was a joke. Then I realized it was worse. It was a performance. They hadn't remembered my birthdays for 5 years straight. They'd brushed me off with excuses, handed me gift baskets, while giving Madison luxury spa trips and surprise parties. And now they were throwing a birthday party for me, without me. It was brilliant in its own sick way. A public relations stunt disguised as love. Because in their version of the story, I wasn't the forgotten daughter. I was the runaway daughter. The broken one. The one too stubborn or too unstable to come home. The party wasn't about celebrating me. It was about absolving themselves. "Look how much we love her," the event screamed. "We miss her so much, we're celebrating her even when she refuses to be here." The comments were worse than the event itself. "So sweet of you to do this for Amanda. Family is everything. She'll come around. Don't give up. Praying she finds her way back to you." Each comment stabbed like a needle. Not because I cared what strangers thought, but because this was the narrative now. They weren't the parents who forgot me. They were the saints who threw parties for their ungrateful daughter who cut them off. Madison, of course, played the part of grieving sister perfectly. She posted throwback photos of us, me at 7, her at 4, hugging awkwardly in matching Christmas sweaters. The caption, "Some bonds can't be broken. Miss you every day, sis." I wanted to scream. We'd never been that close. We'd never told each other everything. She wasn't losing a best friend. She was losing a safety blanket, the sister who made her shine brighter by comparison. But none of that mattered online. Online, the world saw a devastated family mourning a daughter who had abandoned them. It made me wonder, what do people believe more? The truth whispered quietly or the lie shouted with photos and hashtags? The night of the so-called celebration, I checked Jennifer's updates. Madison had posted a group photo, her, my parents, Aunt Carol, a few cousins. They sat around a cake with my name on it in big frosted letters. "Happy birthday, Amanda." Candles lit, smiles wide, chairs arranged carefully so one seat was left empty. My seat. I stared at the photo for a long time, not with anger, but with this strange numbness. They had erased years of neglect with one staged evening, and the people clapping in the comments would never know the truth. Meanwhile, I was across town in Chicago, sipping wine with friends who actually remembered me, who laughed with me, who bought me a cake without needing Facebook likes as proof. It was small, simple, real, and it was the happiest birthday I'd had in years. Later, Jennifer texted, they deleted the event. Guess someone finally told them how creepy it looked. I smirked. Creepy didn't even cover it. It was desperate. But the part that stuck with me wasn't the cake or the staged photos or the guest list. It was the caption Madison wrote under the group shot, dinner with family. Some chairs feel empty tonight. Love you always, sis. She tagged me in it. I hadn't just disappeared from their lives, I had become a ghost. They paraded around for sympathy. And I realized then, with a chill, that my absence wasn't weakening them. It was strengthening their story. They could keep rewriting history as long as I stayed gone. That night, after my friends went home, I sat alone and whispered a question into the quiet. What's worse, being forgotten or being remembered wrong? I didn't have an answer. The birthday celebration was supposed to be the climax of their narrative. A perfect stage play for the neighbors and extended family. We're the loving parents. She's the ungrateful daughter. But the cracks were already showing. A week later, I got my first letter in the mail. A thick envelope, my mom's handwriting instantly recognizable. I didn't open it right away. I left it sitting on my kitchen counter, daring myself not to care. Eventually, curiosity won. Inside was 3 pages of flowing cursive smudged in places like she wanted me to believe she'd cried over it. Amanda, if we ever made you feel neglected, it was never intentional. You're so independent, honey. We thought you didn't need us the way Madison does. Please don't punish us for our mistakes. We only want to be a family again. There it was, the classic non-apology. Not we hurt you, but if you felt hurt. Not we favored Madison, but you're just stronger. I read it twice, folded it neatly, and slid it back into the envelope. My heart didn't race. My hands didn't shake. All I felt was tired. A week later came a package, a care box stuffed with snacks from my childhood, a blanket in my favorite color, even a paperback novel from an author I used to obsess over as a teenager. On top was a sticky note. See, we remember what you love. I laughed bitterly. They hadn't remembered my birthday for 5 straight years. But now they remembered every flavor of chips I'd liked when I was 12. It wasn't love, it was strategy. Dad took a different route. His letter was typed formal, almost businesslike. Amanda communication in our family has clearly broken down. Perhaps we favored Madison unintentionally, but that was never meant to diminish your worth. I propose we meet with a family counselor. Let's address these issues like adults. It was the closest thing to accountability I'd ever seen from him. But even then, perhaps we favored Madison unintentionally, as if spending 60 grand on her SUV while forgetting my birthday was an accident. I didn't reply. That's when things got darker. Jennifer texted me screenshots of Facebook messages from accounts I didn't recognize. One profile used a stock photo grandma as a profile picture. Another was just a silhouette with the name Carol Miller. Both wrote the same thing to my friends. Hi, I'm a close family friend. We're very worried about Amanda. Could you please confirm she's okay? Fake accounts. My parents, or maybe Madison, were catfishing my friends to get updates on me. It wasn't just pathetic, it was invasive. Then came the phone calls. My landlord knocked on my door one evening sheepish. Your parents called me, he said. They sounded frantic, asking if you were safe. I told them I couldn't give out tenant information, but it rattled me. Is everything okay? I felt heat crawl up my neck. My parents had crossed from desperation into harassment. They were contacting anyone connected to me. My building, my doctor's office, even my gym. HIPAA saved me at the doctor's. The receptionist told me someone identifying as my mother had called demanding to know my medical status. We didn't give her anything. Don't worry, she assured me. Still, the fact that mom had tried chilled me. They weren't just trying to reach me. They were trying to control the narrative. If I wouldn't talk to them, they'd force information out of anyone who would. Month 6 rolled around and Jennifer had another story. She'd run into Madison at a coffee shop. Madison wasted no time unloading her revised sob story. Amanda's always been jealous of me. She's been unstable for years. We've offered to pay for her therapy, but she refused. She thinks nothing's wrong with her. We're just worried she's having a breakdown. A breakdown. That was the word. So now, in the official Mitchell family script, I wasn't the daughter they neglected. I was the unstable daughter who abandoned them in a fit of paranoia. It was gaslighting at its finest. Rewrite the past twist. My silence into sickness, and suddenly, they were the heroes again, desperately trying to save me from myself. Jennifer had pushed back, bless her. She told Madison she'd seen me, and I was fine, thriving even. Madison apparently bristled, repeating, we've always been such a close family. Amanda knows how much we love her. A close family? The same close family that gave my sister an Audi, while sending me a generic gift card. The mask was slipping, and I saw what was really underneath: not love, not worry, control. My family couldn't handle losing their narrative, so they were rewriting it piece by piece. The most surreal proof came through social media. Madison posted a somber photo at a restaurant with my parents captioned, some chairs feel empty tonight. Family isn't the same without you, sis. She tagged me. And that's when I realized something chilling. I hadn't just left them. I become their ghost. They paraded my absence around like a trophy proof of how much they were hurting. They needed me more invisible than visible because the story of the missing daughter made them look better than the story of the neglected one. I looked at the photo again, their solemn faces, the empty chairs staged for sympathy, and I whispered, "You're not mourning me, you're marketing me." It started with a lazy Sunday project. I was sorting through old photos on my laptop trying to organize folders that had been a mess since college. I thought it would be mindless, maybe even nostalgic. Instead, it became evidence proof of something I'd always felt, but never dared to face directly. At first, the images looked innocent enough. Family holidays, birthdays, graduations. But the more I clicked through, the clearer the story became. Madison was always the star. I was always the shadow. Christmas 2009. Madison front and center, beaming as she tore open a mountain of gifts stacked in front of her. I was in the corner of the frame holding a single sweater in my lap. Same tree, same night, two different worlds. Madison's 16th birthday. A brand new Honda Civic with a giant red bow on the hood. Dad's grin looked like pride and relief rolled into one. 3 years earlier, when I turned 16, a hand-me-down pickup truck that reeked of motor oil and barely started in the winter. "It'll build character," Dad had said. Character apparently was what I deserved. Reliability was reserved for Madison. Then I found the graduation photos. Madison's high school celebration. A rented country club room, 30 or 40 guests, a custom cake, a professional photographer. I remembered smiling politely that day, telling myself I wasn't jealous. Looking at the pictures now, I saw my 17-year-old self lurking at the edge of the frame, trying to look happy, but clearly invisible. My own graduation had been Olive Garden. Immediate family only. No balloons, no photographer. Just lukewarm breadsticks and the quiet reassurance that I didn't need anything more. Over and over, the photos screamed the truth I'd swallowed for years. Independence wasn't a compliment. It was their excuse, their way of saying, "You don't need our love the way she does. You don't deserve our effort." The patterns weren't just in celebrations. They were in the small details too. Every photo of Madison came with captions from my mom's Facebook page, "Our beautiful girl, so proud of our future leader, couldn't love her more." And me? My rare mentions were bland, almost dismissive. Amanda's still in Chicago doing well. That was it. No details, no excitement, just a footnote to my sister's saga. The deeper I went, the angrier I got. There were pictures from Madison's fender bender, yes, her fender bender, where my parents had rushed to the scene, comforting her, documenting every angle like it was a war crime. 2 months later, when I was in an actual highway accident that totaled my car, I remembered calling Mom from the ER. Her response, "Sounds like you've got it under control. You've always been so capable." Capable. That word became poison in my mouth. Capable was code for forgotten, for unsupported, for uncelebrated. And the worst part, I'd defended them for years. To friends, to coworkers, even to myself. I told people they just show love differently. They trust me to handle things. I wrapped my own neglect in pretty paper, tied it with a bow of rationalization, and called it family loyalty. But the photos stripped away the illusion. One image in particular gutted me. Thanksgiving, maybe 6 or 7 years ago. The whole family gathered around the table, Madison at the center, with Mom's arm draped proudly around her shoulders. I was at the far end, partly cut off by the frame-carving turkey, while everyone else posed. I looked like the help. Not the daughter, the help. As I scrolled, I kept asking myself the same question. Why didn't I see it before? Why did it take 5 forgotten birthdays and a luxury SUV for Madison to finally snap me awake? The truth is, I did see it. I just didn't want to admit it. Because admitting it would mean admitting that my family, the people who were supposed to love me unconditionally, never actually saw me. They only saw what I could provide. My independence, my silence, my ability to not need them. Looking at the photos, I realized something else. Madison wasn't malicious. She wasn't plotting against me. She was simply used to being adored, to having everything revolve around her. It wasn't that she stole the spotlight, it was that no one ever thought I deserved one. That's when the anger sharpened into something else resolve. I didn't block my family out of spite. I blocked them to survive. And now with the evidence staring me in the face, I knew I hadn't overreacted. I hadn't been too sensitive. The favoritism was real, documented in hundreds of images spanning decades. I closed the laptop and leaned back at my chest, tight but clear. For the first time in years, I felt like I wasn't crazy. If anyone ever asked me why I cut them off, I finally had my answer. Not just words, but proof. Proof that I wasn't imagining things. Proof that independence had been their excuse to neglect me, while Madison was their golden child. Proof that forgetting my birthday 5 years in a row wasn't an accident. It was the natural extension of a lifetime of being invisible. I whispered to the empty room, never again. It's strange how 2 nearly identical events can expose the truth so clearly. For me, it was the difference between Madison's tiny car accident and my own near-death crash. Madison's accident was nothing more than a dented bumper in the high school parking lot. She hit a light post while adjusting her makeup in the rearview mirror. The car wasn't even scratched badly. It was more embarrassment than damage. But you would have thought she'd been pulled from a burning wreck. Within 20 minutes, Mom and Dad were at the scene. Dad's arm around her, Mom fussing over her like she'd survived a war zone. Neighbors heard about it. Aunts and uncles got calls. There were Facebook posts asking for prayers. all for a girl with a small bruise on her shin and a cracked headlight. I remember sitting at dinner that night listening to Madison recount the event with tears in her eyes. Mom stroked her hair, whispering, "You poor thing, we're just glad you're safe." Dad kept nodding, saying, "Cars can be replaced, but you can't." And me, I was invisible, fork scraping plate, wondering if maybe next time I should crash into a pole just to see what it felt like to be cherished. Fast forward 2 years. I was 19, driving home from work when a semi-truck clipped my rear bumper on the highway. My car spun, slammed into the guardrail, and crumpled like a soda can. Airbags deployed, glass everywhere, my ears ringing. For a moment, I thought that was it, that my life had ended on a Thursday night, with my unfinished degree and $200 in my bank account. I called Mom from the ER after the paramedics confirmed I was alive. I was shaken, bleeding from a cut on my arm, dizzy from the whiplash. I just wanted to hear her voice to feel safe. Her response still echoes in my head. "Sounds like you've got it under control. You've always been so capable." No rushing to the hospital, no phone calls to family, no Facebook prayers. Just a flat statement, like she was complimenting me for fixing a leaky sink. Capable, that word again. My curse. Madison got concerned, tears, reassurance. I got capable. Translation, handle it yourself, we're not coming. I hung up the phone, staring at the hospital ceiling, wondering how many stitches it took to make a parent care. That night, lying in the ER bed, I realized something had snapped in me. A quiet kind of break. Not dramatic, not loud. Just a click inside like a lock sliding shut. When Madison's accident happened, I told myself it was just favoritism, harmless overprotection. But now, bleeding and alone, I saw it clearly. It wasn't favoritism. It was hierarchy. Madison was the fragile treasure. I was the reliable mule. One got rescued, the other got relied upon. And once you see the roles, you can't unsee them. A week later, when Dad called to ask if I'd learned anything from the accident, like it was a test I'd failed, I didn't even argue. I just nodded into the phone, pretending to listen, while inside I was drawing a line in permanent ink. I will never let you decide my worth again. The photos, the birthdays, the cars, the accidents, all of it stacked like bricks on my back. And that night in the ER, that was the final one, the straw that broke me. I didn't cry, I didn't scream. I just accepted it. My family would never see me as deserving of their protection. And if they wouldn't protect me, then I had to protect myself from them. Thanks for watching this full story. If it struck a chord, please like, subscribe, and drop a comment about where you're watching from. Your support helps more people find stories about betrayal, boundaries, and learning to celebrate yourself when family won't.